Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today with 6 things that I believe need to improve in Borderlands 3. Now normally when I come home from these events, because we're playing such an early version of the game, I think to myself, oh, this could improve, this could be better, and it's quite easy to put together one of these lists. But this time around, it was actually really tough, and I think that's because we're so close to the final product that most things are set in stone. But anyway, I do think there are some things that could be better in Borderlands 3, as there could be with any game, and I want to make a video dedicated to that just so that if Gearbox ever stumbles upon this video, they can see exactly what I believe needs to be fixed or worked on a little bit. Starting off at number 1 with the AI. Now this one I hit on in my impressions video, and I'm definitely doing it again because this actually needs legitimate work. The enemies would stop shooting at you, the way they'd route towards you would make zero sense, and also more notably, because the combat can get so frantic so you may not pick up on it as much, is the vehicle combat, where I would see constantly enemies driving into walls, parking, and just letting me shoot them and they wouldn't even fire back. Now Borderlands is really all about that looting and shooting, and it's not that fun when your enemies don't shoot back. There's no challenge there, and I know that AI in Borderlands has never been this thing that has a lot of pushback, but there's been enough historically where it feels like a good challenge, and that's what Borderlands 3 really lacked. As I mentioned also in my impressions, the only time I did go down was when I got hoarded. It wasn't because the AI was outsmarting me or anything, and I'm not expecting this super intelligent AI. I thought the only functional one really was the Flash Trooper, which quickly teleported to cover anytime it needed to, but outside of that, enemies would just stand there, let me shoot them, they wouldn't shoot back at all. There was just something quite finicky about the AI, and this needs major work if the game's going to launch in just a few months, because otherwise we have a game with pretty much zero challenge unless they just spawn 20 enemies at once. Anyway, moving on to number 2, which is a brand new feature, technically for Borderlands 3, but more so for the streaming community, and that is the ECHOCAST. So while I was streaming the game, I actually noticed that there were quite a bit of complaints about how the ECHOCAST was. I believe a developer had said that there's a 25% chance that someone gets something from the ECHOCAST when I open up one of the red chests. So what happens is, when I open up this red chest, you guys have an opportunity to get one of the items there by participating, and it actually becomes a raffle. Now, I didn't think this was the smartest approach because I thought that it would be more interesting for the viewers if they knew that they were all going to get something. It's not just this lottery ticket kind of machine, that we could actually make sure viewers got loot. However, the positive on the side of the ECHOCAST is that it kept the conversation driven towards what was happening in the game, which you never really see. Often new viewers will pop in and ask the same questions that ones just asked 5 minutes ago. What's your build? What's your loadout? What do you have in your backpack? What's going on? And the ECHOCAST enables you to be able to do all that. So that part is functioning. That part is totally fine in my opinion. It's more so the way that they handle loot. Even if it was 50% of the chat, because what's going to happen is that people are going to end up stream hopping constantly, which is fine. You're allowed to watch who you want. That's not what I'm saying. But what's going to happen is people are going to start farming with the ECHOCAST through streamers, and I think that's going to be a strange approach to Borderlands 3 until they burn out on that and realize it feels a little bit gimmicky. So I think off the rip, they really should give us a little bit more loot, maybe decrease the rarity tier by 1 if it's a really high legendary item or an epic item, knock it down a peg just so that people can't farm the best gear in the game by not playing. But still, I think it's a cool way to encourage your audience to watch you play, and they get to benefit from it even if they're not playing the game at that point in time. And I think this is one aspect that could use a smidge of work and tweaking. Number 3 is the quest markers. Now, normally they were functional during my time with this game, but there was a standout moment twice where actually the quest markers had completely shifted, and I had to go back to my footage afterwards to verify if this was the case or not, and it turned out it was. So one time I had to talk to Lorelei, and it used the standard big icon that we see on the map in Borderlands to hunt down our objectives. However, this was actually a icon to bring me to the location. After that, there was no quest marker telling me who to go talk to. Now, she's quite easy to find, so don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm complaining about that, but more so I feel this could lead to future problems in other parts of the game, because after that, once you enter there and the icon disappears, it's sort of a hunting her down type of mission. And I don't believe it was intentional, because the rest of the demo would lead me directly to my objective every time, whether it was simply picking up an item, going to talk to someone. Those parts always worked fine. There were just specific moments throughout the quest, usually when they were concluding, where you had to talk to someone specifically, that the markers for the quest would either A, disappear, or B, shrink down and you couldn't see them at all because they were overlapping with another piece of the UI, which, like I said, I don't believe was intentional for the team. So a little UI bug there that they should be made aware of. Number 4, this is an Amara specific complaint. It is about her phase blast. Now, I thought it was such a satisfying power to use because often it would rip through any enemy in its path. So if there were 3 enemies stacked upon each other, it wouldn't just be one person getting hit with the phase blast. All 3 of them would be if they were in a line or even remotely close to each other, and it felt good to use that. However, sometimes it would also cut through cover, but not all bits of cover. Now, it may sound like a nitpick, like, Maddie, who cares if it's not all bits of cover, but what happens is it removes some of the locomotion and the flow in the gameplay, and it also confuses the gamer, because as I was playing, I'd shoot through certain pieces of cover and go, all right, sweet, like, I'm ripping through everybody, they can't hide from me, it flushes them out of cover when they actually do use it, and then sometimes when I use the phase blast, it'll hit an object, and that'll be it. Now, I'm not saying it has to be this invincible blast that cuts through all objects in the game, but I think there should be a little more leniency on that side because Amara is super powerful. She has that feeling in the rest of her powers, whether it's the phase lock or the phase slam. So I feel like to get the phase blast on that same level of feeling invincible, you need to let that cut through all bits of cover, because also it is useful, for example, with the augment that I had, which allows me to extract some health from the enemy when my phase blast lands. So if I have to take cover and actually fight a little more strategically in Borderlands, that would be an option there, and I'd really like that. Number 5 is the gore. Now, that may sound a little sadistic, but I promise you, I do enjoy Borderlands 3 gore. I would say it's okay. However, after playing one Game of the Year edition, I might be a little bit spoiled on how well done that was, and also I forgot how well done it was, because one had quite responsive gore, as I would describe it. It felt like if I shot someone in the head, their head popped like a grape. If I shot them in the arm, their arm would fall off. If they blew up with a grenade at their feet, goodbye, psycho, you were into a bunch of little bits like a frickin' meatball. I have no idea what that means, but anyway, Borderlands 3's gore sometimes didn't trigger. Sometimes it didn't feel like it triggered at the right times, where I'd shoot someone with a pistol and they'd blow to bits. Sometimes I'd shoot them in the chest with an assault rifle and their head would fall off. And sometimes I'd hit them with a grenade and they'd just ragdoll their body, and that would be it. I thought that Borderlands 3's gore was a little underwhelming in that respect, because this is something that could have really pushed it above and beyond. But however, I think the reason they had to dumb down the gore is because when you take into account all the particle effects, the moving parts in the gameplay, the amount of enemies on screen, the graphical details that are there, I think they had to knock this down a little bit, and it was noticeable. But if by chance they are able to improve this gore, make it a bit more responsive, where when I do shoot someone in the head, their head does pop, or when I do throw a grenade at them, they are eviscerated into nice red dust, then that is something I would love for the team to pursue, because it's not like it's bad. It was just a little underwhelming, and like I said, it lacked that responsiveness that one does have. Anyway, last on this list is the HUD pop-ups for little things. So as you're exploring these areas, you'll get little side quests in a sense that aren't marked in your objectives, but more so things you can do in specific areas. One was prompting me about Moxie's sabotage. Now, at the point when I actually received this, things got really chaotic because I entered the area for this quest to begin, but also there were enemies there naturally, which makes sense. However, the time for this menu that it's up for is far too short, and with chaos going on around me, I couldn't stop, smell the roses, and read. I would love if this could get stashed in some part of the menu where you could revise text that's actually come up on your screen. This was something that I saw in KOTOR, where they would have a messages screen, so any text you ever heard or read throughout the game would be logged into your messages, so if you missed something, you could just go back there and revise all dialogue, all quest markers, everything. Anyway, it felt like a lack of awareness on the part of the developers when it came to this aspect of the game, because they know there's enemies everywhere, they know there's a lot of shooting, and to deliver data to the player through text solely on the side of the screen in a little box was strange. There's a reason why Borderlands relies quite heavily on the EchoNet device in-game, because it's always telling you things through audio, because you can shoot and listen. That's possible, but you can't shoot and try to read at the same time. That simply never works. A lot of these may sound like nitpicks or little things, but I promise you they do amount into something that can detract from the experience a little bit. I think if combined, all of these fixes can make for easily a excellent Borderlands experience, but these aren't deal breakers whatsoever, and the game on its own, as you mostly heard in my impressions video, was fantastic. I had had such a damn good time with that game, and it was so good it was kind of hard to go back to Borderlands 1 and 2. So yeah, go Borderlands 3, man. They did a fantastic job. But anyway, these are 6 things in Borderlands 3 that I personally believe need some improvement, and I especially think that the ECHOCAST was one because a lot of my viewers on Twitch were complaining about that. So I think that's a fair complaint. Anyway, let's hear what you guys have to say in the comments down below. Do you think Borderlands 3 looked near perfect? Let me know. Fire away, ladies and gentlemen. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.